everyone, it's Ellie Mae with Swift Creek Customs, and today I wanted to bring you something neat about the Siser cutting machines. In this video, I'm going to be showing it on the Siser Romeo, which is your 24-inch cutting machine. Your 24-inch cutting machine, as most of you know, is for, you're going to be using it for those big, wide lengths of vinyl or HTV. That is typically what a user would be getting the Romeo or a 24-inch machine for. You can still use it for all other things, but that's typically what a user is looking for, is a wider format machine. However, a neat feature of both Siser Romeo and Juliet is that it has adjustable rollers that can be relocated into different positions on the machine, which allows you to be able to cut smaller widths of vinyl as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you on Siser Romeo, but I will also be doing a video with Siser Juliet, and I will put that link in the description below so you can check out that video as well. Since they are different widths of cutting machines, they are going to be just a little bit different, but the information is going to be the same. So your sizes between where your rollers can be placed is going to vary based on your width of your cutting machine, but the information is the same for both machines. So let's switch to a different camera view and take a closer look at Siser Romeo. Okay, so what I'm going to show here is this is the Siser Romeo machine. It is your 24-inch cutting machine. And on Siser Romeo, there are 4 rollers. And they will be in different locations than where mine are currently now because I have moved them. Now, the way you move the rollers is there's a lever in the on the back side of the cutting machine, and you can flip this down, and that means that the roller is unlocked. So it'll be freely moving here. And then you carefully grab the roller on the front and on the back. That is the easiest way to help it to slide along the bar in the back where the roller is located. So you need to use both hands to do this. Otherwise, it's not going to move freely and it won't slide as easy. Now, the thing that makes the Romeo and the Juliet very much different than other cutting machines is that you can locate, I'm going to push this home button here, move the housing back in. You can locate all of the rollers anywhere along where these black gripping areas are located on the machine. And since this is a 24-inch machine, it's really difficult to get everything in the video and try to stay out of the video so you can see this. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to move this roller here. 2 hands, it slides easily along the bar, and it can be placed anywhere on this black part. The black part is a textured part on that bottom roller part. A lot of parts. But it is textured. If you move your finger over it, it's a rough texture. And that's what allows this silicone or rubber roller to grip and have that force on the materials. So it's holding it well into the machine. So the rollers on Siser Romeo and Juliet are really, really good. They're really strong. But the neat feature that I want to show you in this video is I have cut these lengths of, this is about 3, a little over 3 and 3/4 inch wide material. And previously on cutting machines, you would need to use a cutting mat to cut this material. This is HTV. But with Romeo and Juliet, you can move the rollers and you can do it between any 2 rollers. So you can go a lot smaller. So for instance, these 2 rollers right here looks like they are the smallest width apart. If I use my tape measure, they are a little over 1 inch apart, which means that I can move any of these rollers. All 4 of the rollers move. It's just a matter of which one's easier for you to move. So if I move this roller back over here to the edge of that grip area, and I move this 3rd roller all the way back over here, You can move them as close as they can touch, which actually is exactly the width, the 1 inch between those two rollers, which technically means if I grab a piece of vinyl here, I'm going to use this one for example, but I do have one that's about 1 inch. That one would be a bit tough. This is just going to take a matter of testing for you because you still want your rollers to have a good grip. And I would recommend as you're practicing this that you have the material completely under both of these rollers. So in this case, since the way Romeo and Juliet load, I have the roller bar flipped down and I can just place my material in there. You do want to try and place it as straight as possible because how you place the material is how it's going to feed through the machine. So you can see here, and I will try to zoom in on this video. You can see here it's securely under both of my rollers. You definitely want to measure your material so you can change that in this software, or so you know exactly the width of your material that you're using. So this one is it's a little under 2 3/4. Siser Juliet and Romeo will cut off of your material and then they can come back on. So you'll notice this as you get to playing with the machine and testing the machine. If you're off by just a little bit, it will still cut it, and most times you will actually complete the cut. It's kind of amazing to watch because it comes back onto that material. It doesn't get jammed up. It doesn't get held up in most cases, unless your material is curled. So then what I can do is I can use the arrows and I can adjust in. And because of the way Juliet and Romeo function, you move the housing. So you move your blade to the start point. So you move your blade. If you hold down, it moves faster. So you move and you tell the machine where you want it to start cutting. So I'm just going to use this little test cut here. And you can see that I am cutting on this piece of material that's under 3 inches. Now I'm going to push the home button just so I can see this and grab my weeding hook. And then you can go ahead and you can weed out your test cut. Now you'll be doing this from the front of the machine so it won't be quite as awkward. Make sure you don't get materials in your machine. So I have my test cut there. You can see that it was absolutely flat. For you to be able to do this, it's going to, again, depend on you and you loading your materials, and if your materials are as flat as possible. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that no matter where you're doing it from, so let's move this out a little bit and I'll show you another tip here. So if I'm going to use this piece of material, I can go ahead and I can move these two rollers. We're just going to use this middle demonstration. Moving those with both hands. And I'm going to measure my material. The great part about the Romeo and Juliet is that they can cut outside of the bounds of your rollers. So you don't necessarily have to have them on the very edge of your material, but you can get it close. Let's see if that'll still. Okay, so that's still going to be good. I have a long length here. The other thing about using long lengths of material is that you don't want it to hang down if you have a really super long piece. This isn't too long, but if you have it hanging down in front or behind the machine, it's going to affect, or it could affect, how it feeds because gravity is going to take effect. And if you have a large roll, that's going to be heavy. Romeo and Juliet have stronger rollers, so it may not be noticeable as much, but having your materials hanging down in front or behind could affect your feeding on your machine. So I lined it up here on the front. I'm going to go ahead and roll this through. So you have your rollers here. When you're doing the mat list, how you load your material is going to be part of your success with cutting it. If your material is not flat and secure in the middle between the rollers, that's going to cause cut issues. So your material is going to buckle, it's going to catch, it's going to drag. So you want to just be mindful of that when you are loading it. If at all you have a question on whether it's secure enough, just flip the roller bar lever lock down and reload your material. It will save you in the long run for cuts. And then you want to make sure, so let's set this up again. Since you move the housing, I can cut in the middle. So I can use a piece that's small. So I can use my scraps, or in this case, I have cut off from a bulk end roll that I got at the Vinyl Spectrum. So before, it was harder to use scraps or harder to use end rolls. An end roll comes when a retailer is cutting their products down to a specific size that most customers request. So you start out, and here I'm going to show you a photo of a bulk roll at the Siser headquarters. So this is how the rolls are manufactured. They're huge, they're large. I was also able to see how they take it from that large roll and move it into smaller rolls. But if you get a bulk roll that comes in, you have to cut that down to size. And so this is an end roll, and it's what I'm using in this example. But you can do this with any of your scraps that you have. I'll just take my test cut off. So I just cut strips to start testing this with, but you can position this anywhere there are those black grips. So you can really cut anywhere from a width of a little over 1 inch. So you probably, I would say, I'd recommend at least 2 inches to get started. 1 inch is between these two grip rollers right here that we measured, but all along here. So I'm going to show you this test cut one more time. So I positioned the housing, and then where I position that housing, it's going to test cut. If I position the housing off of the material, which I have done, you're going to do it. Just get used to that fact. It's not always a machine issue, it's a user error issue. So I have done this, and I have actually done it with the housing back in the home position. But it's going to still cut. Let's see if I'll do a demonstration. This is not what I recommend because it can damage the cutting strip that's underneath your machine. So do not do this if you can prevent it. But chances are you're probably going to forget and do it anyhow. So that's why I'm showing you. So if I test cut, it still cuts, and it cut both on and off that material. And you can see with the housing, the way it cut, that it did not have any issues getting on that material. The blade works really smooth on that. It didn't catch, it didn't fold, it didn't buckle. You may still encounter that if it goes off your materials, but I've been testing this and I've cut off my materials quite a bit. So this is just a really neat feature. Check out the link below for a video on Juliet and showing the same things. Again, the width between your rollers is where the roller grips are, is going to be different on a 24-inch machine versus the 12-inch machine. Now, I hope that gives you a little bit closer look at some of the moving parts of the Siser Romeo machine. I thought it was a really neat feature because I see it asked often on Facebook groups, and with the old other craft machines, you can't cut that small in your width. You have to use a cutting mat. But with Siser Romeo and Juliet, you can adjust these rollers in more locations so that you can feed a smaller width of vinyl through. As you saw at the beginning of the video, I did a piece that was even smaller than this almost 4-inch piece in the machine. So I was able to do this. You could go down to probably about 2 inches safely, but I have seen a video by a gentleman by the name of J-Lo who actually tested a really tiny piece that just barely fit under one roller. So look him up on TikTok, but it's really neat what you can do with these machines, and I just thought I'd point that out. So thanks for joining me. Have a great day.